Hello and welcome to the Inner Compass 5 Photos. This is where we want people to get in touch with their own internal navigation system, because we know that when that happens, well, inspiration is ignited. And my guest here today is certainly someone who has got in touch with their own inner compass. I'm delighted to welcome Kimberley Hare. Hello, Kimberley.
Hello, delighted to be here.
Now, Kimberley, you are the founder of The Heart of Thriving. You've been a 3P facilitator for 10 years. And I know that you've got a real passion, and that's going to be the subject of the conversation today. But in a nutshell, what is your passion? You've shifted and moved into an area that really touches you.
Yes, so I woke up, you could say, to the climate and ecological crisis only earlier this year. I'm very late to the party. But I have done an enormous amount of intensive research since then and really explored what's going on. And as crises often do, it's led to all sorts of, it's led to me knowing what's really important, even more than before, and focusing and prioritizing on that. And has led to a whole load of nudges from the universe or mind or the intelligence behind life as to how I should now be spending my time. So yeah, that's what these 5 photos are all about.
Well, shall we just crack on then, and you can take us through your 5 photos?
Absolutely, yeah, that's great. So yeah, these 5 photos, incredibly difficult challenge to find only 5, but my first one is of, as you can see, a group there. And this is one of the groups on my Heart of Thriving workshops, which I run every month or couple of months. And I do these in-house and also as an open program. This represents my life for the last 35 years, really. The thing I love above all is working, or actually it feels more like playing with groups. It's what I do best. And since 2009, all my work has been underpinned by this understanding called the 3 principles. And I call it the Heart of Thriving, because for me, it's about waking up and being fully alive and connecting with who and what we really are, and thriving, no matter what the external circumstances are. And in hindsight, when I look at this picture, I realize it's always been about that for me. Even before coming across the principles, if I was sharing, teaching leadership skills or NLP strategies or training trainers and coaches, it was always about really the realization of human potential and going deeper and finding the joy and love that is our essence. Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit leading us up to the present moment, and that's photo 1, ready to move on.
And so it really sounds as though this whole idea of connection and love and compassion, that's really been a thread through everything that you've done. So yeah, let's move on.
Yeah. So this is a picture of part of my garden, which is very important to me. And it's been a particularly beautiful year, I think, this year. When I woke up to the climate and ecological crisis, I did a lot of grieving in my garden. And I think that's, I don't think that's pathological. I don't think it's something to be fixed or cured or resolved. I think it's incredibly natural and appropriate, actually, when you see what's actually happening. You know, I would literally weep and sob as I cradled flowers in my hands, or as I watched, you know, a robin digging for worms. And here in England, you know, one could be forgiven for not seeing the full extent of the catastrophe that's coming our way. And, you know, everything looks the same, really. The supermarkets are still stocked with food flown from all over the world for our convenience. We're still talking about Brexit or the Rugby World Cup. We're still just recently maybe going to our local fireworks display. It all feels really normal. But after all the research that I've done, I now see the many signs that climate catastrophe is already happening right here in England. So that's my garden.
I mean, that sounds as though it was almost like a physical punch in the stomach when you woke up to what you saw as the unfolding climate disaster. And I really get what you're saying, is that, you know, here in the UK, it doesn't look like anything has changed, but you really do see that even though things look the same, you don't have to scratch far beneath the surface to see that things are going to shift, and shift dramatically, even for us in our bubble of an island that we live on.
Absolutely, and quite soon. I mean, just one small example, we import 60% of our food, and it's all, you know, as you know, it's very much, the whole system is predicated on just in time. So there's no slack in the system at all. And last year, and they predict this year as well, the harvests across Europe and certainly other places of the world are radically down. And I think we're going to see, you know, I think that's going to be one of the first signs, is food shortages. Okay, well, let's move on to your next photo. Okay, so this is one of the many iconic photos that were taken during the spring, summer and autumn rebellions by Extinction Rebellion. This was in London, and I joined a few of them. I didn't actually get arrested, but I joined a few of the rebellions, and I'm enormously grateful to this movement for what they've achieved in terms of raising awareness of our predicament. But it's funny, you know, I realise now that that's not my path. Rebellion isn't my path, even though I love what they're doing. This photo particularly breaks my heart open, because it's just such a great encapsulation of how few of us really see that we're not separate from one another. And I feel such compassion for the police here, as well as admiration for the courage of the rebels, but especially the many, many, many people who've given up everything to make this their only priority. But it's so, you know, exactly when we should be working together to reimagine a radically different future, instead what we're doing is arresting each other and locking each other up for disrupting business as usual. So that's why it breaks my heart open. And believe me, you know, I've had moments of outrage over the past few months, certainly. But I feel now in a place that's kind of, there's no blame or judgment or criticism of anybody in terms of what I'm feeling now. You know, I know that everybody's doing the best they can, given the thinking that looks real to them in the moment. In other words, it doesn't look like thinking. So I don't see good guys and bad guys in this. I see that the CEO of a fossil fuel company is just as trapped in the prison of our industrial growth system as the, you know, poor 0 hours contract worker having to use food banks to feed their children. You know, we face a failure of imagination, I think, at the moment, in terms of how it could be different if we weren't in this extractive, infinite growth, you know, more system, because most of us have never lived in anything else. So what's needed, of course, is a massive global awakening in consciousness. And I don't know whether that will happen fast enough, or whether it can happen fast enough. But I had a big nudge from Mind earlier this year and closed down my business after 35 years of trading. So I'm still doing the same work and slightly different kinds of work, but I'm now doing everything in the gift economy. So I'm not charging anybody for anything. And it feels completely right. It's a tiny, tiny radical act of my rebellion, I guess. saying, I refuse to play this game anymore. I refuse to live anymore in a world where I will help you, but only if you give me money. And I realize not everybody gets to make that choice, and I'm incredibly privileged and blessed. But I can make that choice, and I have, at least until the savings run out. But it feels really, really good.
Great.
So that's that one.
Next photo.
Okay, so this is a drawing rather than a photo, and it's Joanna Macy's, what she calls the spiral of the work that reconnects. And just earlier this year, I facilitated my first retreat, which I call The Edge, which is a 4-day program, inviting people who have just woken up to the climate and ecological crisis and are struggling. It's a kind of a very profound pause to inquire together in good company into the question, so what now? It was probably the most challenging and rewarding work I've ever done in my life. It was incredibly rich. And we explore kind of 3 threads in there. One of the threads is the 3 principles, which I think is profoundly valuable for anybody facing, what's become known as eco-grief or climate anxiety. And there are, the people that would describe themselves as suffering from that is growing so exponentially. I'm involved in a number of initiatives that are kind of supporting people. The second thing is positive deep adaptation, as articulated by Professor Jem Bendell, which is kind of saying, although everything that we're doing to try and mitigate disaster, we should continue to do that, and we should certainly not make anything worse. But it's probably too late for that. So now it's about what we call positive deep adaptation, which is asking and answering questions about who we want to be, how we want to live, what's really important to us. And he has a framework called the 4 R's, which stand for resilience, relinquishment, restoration, and reconciliation, reconnection. So it's really another really helpful framework. And then the third one, which is speaks more to this picture, is a spiral of a kind of process that I invite people to go through on my retreats. So you start with gratitude for being alive, and for all the blessings in our lives, and even gratitude for being alive right now at this time. And then honouring our pain rather than pathologizing it or making it something we need to fix. Really, there's something about really feeling our feelings, but without creating a story about them. And then seeing with new eyes, and then going forth in terms of whatever makes the most sense to us from our heart, that we should be doing or not doing. It's perfectly fine to me if at the end of that retreat somebody says, do you know what, I'm just going to enjoy the hell out of my life. That's fine. So it's not any particular campaign. It's really giving people a chance to go within and find out their deepest truth. So that's that one. Great.
And so there's something for me in what I'm hearing there, which is about you supporting people just reconnect.
Yeah.
Reconnect to what it is to be human, but also reconnect to what it is in this raising of consciousness about who we truly are. And I think it's the dance, for me, what I'm hearing anyway, it's a dance between the two of the awareness and the being humanness and the gratitude and the pain. It's the yin and the yang, I suppose. That's what I'm hearing and what you're saying.
Yes, very much. And reconnection with all of the things that you said, and also with each other. There's a way in which I believe this whole mess is actually a symptom of disconnection in many, many ways.
Wow.
From ourselves, from each other, from the planet, from nature.
Final photo.
Yes, so this is a picture that I took as part of a group that were engaged in something called deep gazing on one of my workshops. And for me, it represents this universal truth that underneath all of our personal thinking, we're all the same. You know, we're pure consciousness walking around in a body with a clever porridge up here and this wonderful skin bag, you know, but we're made of love. And it's so funny, I've run this exercise hundreds of times, and the initial self-consciousness falls away. And as people gently gaze into each other's eyes, they realize, you know, it's that namaste moment. They realize that the thing that's looking out of their eyes is the same thing that's looking out of the other person's eyes. So it's a very powerful exercise for transcending, you know, our ego or our little self or our separate self. And it strips away the layers of, you know, facade and story in a very powerful way. My path is much more, I guess, call it psycho-spiritual in nature. And although I found the grief and the despair and the outrage and the sadness, it was funny. Once I allowed myself to fully feel those things, what came in even more strongly after that was love. And so right now I feel spacious and present and engaged with it all, and even joyful. I don't think I've ever felt so alive. It's like I've got somehow more bandwidth, and I feel that I can hold it all. And I'm not resisting anything, so there's no fear either. And courage is often confused with stoicism, I think, you know, that stiff upper lip, that bravado that can often mask fear. But I'm discovering another kind of courage, which is the courage to live with a heart broken open, and to stand tall and to keep loving what you love. I often hear people so much recently talking about, yeah, but we need hope, we must have hope. And I don't need it anymore. I'm neither hopeful nor hopeless. I just do the next thing that occurs to me, without needing to believe, you know, in a certain kind of destination.
Oh, so Kim, that's been an extraordinary journey through your 5 photos, and I feel so touched in many ways, because I think many people have come across the message of climate change and have felt real fear and insecurity, or the need to be angry or to point fingers or to find people to blame and take responsibility. And I'm hearing something very different in what you're saying. Something, I know you don't like you weren't using the word hopeful, but for me it feels hopeful. It feels like there is a spark there of something that unites us all, that brings us all together, and that potentially we can find a way forward, albeit at the moment we just cannot see that way forward clearly. But for me, I get a sense there is a spark there. That's how I'm left anyway at the end of this conversation.
Well, I'm pleased, and I think there is hope for us to learn and discover great things through this. You know, in many ways, I see this as a giant wake-up call for humanity, and I'm actually so grateful for my understanding of the 3 principles in this, just to bring it back to that, and that's why I'm doing everything I can to share this with as many people as possible, because I think that understanding has been the biggest thing that's helped me, you know, look it in the face, look the predicament in the face without flinching, and to navigate, you know, from that place of clarity and love and wisdom and innate resilience. So yeah, it's, as I say, enormous gratitude for that understanding.
And Kim, if people would like to connect with you and learn more about what you're up to, or have further questions, what's the best way to get hold of you?
So probably email, which is just Kim, K-I-M, @Heart of Thriving. So heart, like the thing in your chest, Heart of Thriving, all one word, .com.
Great. Kim, it's been an absolute pleasure and delight speaking with you today. Thank you so much.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity.